Hi, this is a quick video about my thoughts and experiences with the game OST, Old School Tactical. It's going to be quite a short video because a lot of people like short videos. I tend to make longer ones, but I'm having trouble uploading stuff to YouTube from both my phone and the computer, so it seems to pick up smaller videos, but then the hassle is sticking them all together, so I hope this is just going to be quite short. What you see before you is a black and white printout of the map 2, which is a map of snow frozen terrain from the print and play version of the Old School Tactical. That's the one, that's one I bought. I think it was $20 or $25. I don't remember. But it's very cheap, and obviously you have to print stuff out. That costs money, but I do it on my home printer, so it's not too bad. Although my colour printer's not working at the moment, so I printed out the colour counters previously some months ago, and I tried the game, didn't really enjoy it, and I broke it out again just now, and I've just finished this scenario called Frozen, which is the one I played when I first tried it, and I broke it out again after playing ATS, which uses a similar impulse alternating activations mechanic as Old School Tactical, and I hadn't enjoyed it before, but I enjoyed it this time within ATS with some sort of provisos and modifiers, so I thought I'd give OST a turn again, because I know it's quite in flavour at the month, as it were. So the sort of bottom line is that I enjoyed the game this time. I felt it played too long for the kind of lightness that it brings. If you play an ASL scenario, you get it takes a long time to play, even sort of short 6-7 turn scenarios, but it's very kind of chunky. There's a lot of bite to it. And so though it takes a long time, you feel like there's a lot in there. And this, I think because of the impulse activation system, so you're continually going back and forth between sides and rolling for impulses and so forth, so you've got all those extra die rolls, etc. It took quite a long time, and so for kind of like a lighter meal, it still took just as long to eat as the full banquet. But perhaps other people would have fun with that, because you're not kind of chewing your way through very tough stuff. So what do you get in the game? Well, you get 2 maps. This is half, in fact, of one map, and the other one's it's the Eastern Front kind of terrain. So this one's got things like there's you've got the yellow that I drew in is to mark the levels, so there's 2 levels there. You've got buildings, trees, hedgerows, stone walls. So you've got brush, rough terrain, and then there's a sort of frozen lake and a river over there. So you've got your sort of standard tropes for tactical wargaming terrain. And they all do the same kind of thing as in ASL or ATS, i.e., with the hedges and the walls, etc. And obviously without so much detail. Then what else do you get? It's a kind of so shades of ATS. You get unit cards. So you get vehicle cards, which have marked on them the 2 hit number and the damage for the AP thing, the HE modifier, firepower, etc. You also get them as unit cards. So here you can see this is a rifle squad. So the rifle squad has got that marked on the counter, but it's also here for handy reference if you want it. Then something which is unique to this game are called luck cards. Each side gets 1 luck card per game. And, I don't know much about game balance and so forth, but it's definitely fun playing with these. In my game, the Russians had a rocket barrage, which basically gave them a one-off extra artillery barrage. No, in fact, their only artillery barrage, which is going to hit somewhere, but in my case, the accuracy was poor and it missed everything. And the Germans got a satchel charge attack, which again, I don't think it was very effective, but they're potentially very powerful sort of one-offs that come in the game. You get other luck things, luck cards. You get lots of counters. So I won't show everything. I haven't punched everything out, and I won't go into gameplay and all that kind of thing. Oh, what's happened to my camera there? Hang on a sec. Okay, so lots more unit cards that they're actually, they come in nice colours like this, and this was when my ink was running out, so I ran out of yellows and blues, so I ended up with just everything was in pink. Lots more unit cards. Little pack of I just pinched mine on paper, so luck cards. You can see you get battle hardening, so it's similar to some of the random events you get in ASL here put on cards rather than coming via die rolls. Lots of unit counters, and there's for the Russians, and you get lots of markers as well. So I think I had enough markers, because you need a lot of moved fired markers, and there were lots in the game. Although one thing I noticed with the print and play version that when you have two-sided counters, you need to make sure that the backs line up with the fronts, and one of the sheets for the markers and some of the units were not lined up. So I got things like a German machine gun with the back of a Russian, anti-tank gun, etc. So you get scenario sheets. Normally that would be on A4. I printed this out for some reason, it came out on 2. So, that very similar sort of scenario sheets. You've got your units and so forth. Then you've got this crucial thing here, which is, there's two things. There's activation dice and gut check. So the gut check is basically the morale rating. So that's for all your units on your side. Obviously, there might be special scenario rules modifying that. Then the activation dice is the number of dice you roll, D6, and that's the number of activations you get that turn. So you see, you might be rolling 3 dice or 2 dice. Your opponent could have a lot more activations than you do. You can pass in activations at certain ways, but so you can see how the game kind of plays. In ATS, you get all your activations. You just alternate. This, you get alternating activations, but you don't know how many units are going to activate. So it makes it interesting and exciting in that fashion. So, okay, Squad Leader and ASL came first. I'd say the essential feature of ATS, which is kind of like, apart from being a ASL Lite, is its impulse alternating activation sequence. And for OST, it's the same thing. It's but I think its impulse activation technique, variable number of activations, is its essential feature, in comparison with other tactical games. Apart from that, again, it's even more simplified than ASL. So I think that is also the other half of its essential feature. So whereas in ATS, I think it's the impulse sequence which is its essence, and it's the simplification also is part of the essence of the system. It's that old school tactical, that kind of the selling point is it's old school, it's simple, it's easy. It's not too fussy. So I think what I found was that in ATS, it's got simpler mechanics, but it's also got quite a lot of detail. With OST, it's simpler mechanics and it's got less detail. So so as an example, say in ATS, you have turret hits on the vehicles, upper hull, lower hull hits, and then like front and flank facing armor. And in this, you just get front defense or flank defense on the armor, no turret hits or so forth like that. Although you can have like the main armament damaged, or you could have a track damaged or machine gun damaged on a vehicle. So it has some of that detail and the things that make these tactical World War II games such fun, but it's got a lot less than ATS. I felt that ATS had kind of like, although it was ostensibly designed from the Tobruk system, it seems more like a kind of simplification of ASL. Whereas, to put that in comparison in relation to OST, OST seems more like it's designed from the ground up. rather than sort of simplifying down, it seems more like it just sort of worked up with basics, simple basics, and consequently it didn't get so far in detail and complexity. So I'm just describing in voice how it feels, and it comes across to me. I'm not saying this is particularly the way that each designer did it, but this is kind of how it comes across to me, at least. So what do I see as the pros and the cons, and then the main threat, as I'm going to term it, to this game? Well, first the pros. The pros is I found that it has that just one more turn syndrome. So you've just finished a term, and looking at it from a perspective as a solo player, or perhaps people with a limited amount of time available, or you're playing late into the night, and you finish a turn and say, look, we really should be finishing here, or I think I should go and do something else. But I just want to play one more turn because it's that easy. It's there's not too much overhead that I think, oh, just one more turn, it won't hurt, and so I keep having that just one more turn feeling, whereas in ASL, one more turn was going to take quite a big overhead of effort and or time, and so it might not happen so frequently. And again, with this, because you've got the impulses, you can kind of stop midway between the turn, and you haven't really sort of it's not you stopped in a particular important phase. You just wait. You've just spent some of your impulses and waiting to spend some more. So it's quite convenient that way to stop mid-turn. As a con, I would say that two things. Because of the variable impulse system, a lot of my thinking was not particularly about the tactical situation and tactical situations overall, but was based around the number of impulses that I had left, and so the people that or units that actually had to activate, and shots that had to be taken. So in that sense, there's more playing to the game more than to the situation. And then what I calling the main threat to a game such as this is rules creep, because as this becomes popular and people like it, the danger is that you then go, oh, that's a funny situation, or that that's an extreme abstraction. Let's house rule, or even as an optional rule in the design to rule that event and what would happen in that event, and then you get rules creep, and then eventually a simple sort of easy game could get horrendously complicated and top heavy. So I don't know if that's going to happen, and I understand the designer has no intention of that happening. From the designer's notes and the playtesting, he's always shaving rules off rather than seeking to add rules in. But I do take it as a credible threat to the game, because there are strange situations, like I had a BT7, is that a tank or big armoured car, in front of an anti-tank gun, and it's like in the hex in front of the anti-tank gun, and there's nothing in the rules to stop the anti-tank gun blithely firing past it at a T-34, which is obviously a much sort of more potent target, a better target to take out than a measly BT7. That seems very strange, and so you'd want the temptation to put in a rule saying anti-tank gun has to fire at the unit closest to it, but with conditions and so forth, and then you've got more rules, and then it's getting more complicated. So there is that credible threat, because without rules creep, you're just going to have to stomach strange situations like that, and that might then make, at least for me, the life of the game less long, because I would, or less full, because I'd say, okay, yeah, it's a fun game, but it doesn't quite have that satisfaction of portraying the tactical evolutions that I'm seeking in this theatre. Do you see what I mean? I feel like I was having a fun light game, whereas generally when I play war games, I kind of want a meaty, historically flavoured, thematic bite of the situations, and ASL gives that. But its con is that it gives it with a lot of necessary overhead, So I think in that comparison, ASL would stick around with me for longer because although it would demand more, it would give a whole lot more, and this wouldn't demand a lot, but then it would provide a high suspension of disbelief. Yeah, okay, you do need that ASL obviously, but making that comparison. So finally, my last comment is that this game would be more satisfying for me if it went quicker. And to that end, I might borrow optional rule from ATS, whereby you can activate 1 to 5 impulses all at once. So instead of activating one impulse, then moving to the other side for an impulse, could do 5 at once. Now that might, create balance problems or awkward gameplay situations, but that might speed the game up. It certainly sped up ATS for me and made it an enjoyable experience, whereas before it hadn't been. So that's the thing. That's it. I enjoyed the game this second try through, so I'm really glad about that. I would heartily recommend anyone to at least download the PDF so you can get a feel for the game, even if you don't want to fork out for the full-on system, which is a big box, heavy postage to Europe, etc., etc. Yeah, and you can print out beautiful-looking maps and more gorgeous components than I've done. It's just, I sort of just make mine quick and ready. So that's OTS via me. Enjoy.